All right, so I'm excited to talk to you guys about your Christmas special that you guys got coming up, and also just hearing about the alarm. The epic journey that you guys had throughout the years. Can you take us back and just let us know how the alarm started?
Absolutely.
Actually, I know you had a music. You were in bands before the alarm, so maybe just take us back, even how to when you first got into music.
Well, I think the first real spark that set the alarm into being was seeing the Sex Pistols in October 1976.
Yeah.
Which was very early on in their timeline, and it was before the notoriety really exploded in the media. So I saw them really up close, and it was a pretty mesmerizing, life-changing experience to see right into the eyes of Johnny Rotten and the energy that was coming out of the songs like Anarchy in the UK. And I didn't know what anarchy meant at the time because they hadn't taught me that in school. And so I tried to ask him what it was after the gig, and he just kind of like pushed me aside. And so it was a positive and a negative experience all at once. But that's where, that's really where, when the rub happens, that's where the energy comes. And so I started a band as a result of seeing them, called the Toilets, believe it or not. And then that was burnt out pretty quick. It was an amazing band. We got to play with the Clash, but we didn't have a Malcolm McLaren behind us to sort of channel our energy or help us channel our energy. And then the Toilets mutated into a sort of power pop mod band called 17. And the big break we got with 17 was we managed to pretend to be a support band with the Stray Cats, who'd just come over from America. And they liked us so much, they let us play the gig and then took us out on tour. And we really learned an awful lot playing on the road with them. And a few months later, we sort of had a reset, whereas 1981 arrived. And especially after the passing of John Lennon, I thought, we need to rethink this. And we created a new band called The Alarm. And off we went. We made our own single and moved to London. And next minute, we were playing with U2 at the Lyceum Ballroom. And we're going to America a couple of years later with them, and hit records followed, and bang, it's never stopped. It's been like a runaway train ever since.
That's such a, first of all, that's such a great first inspiration, seeing the Sex Pistols live, and to inspire you to create a punk band called the Toilets.
That's it.
Like
at the time, that people, when you look back now, you think of all the sort of shock horror and the filth and the fury and the spitting of the Sex Pistols. But when I saw them in 1976, they were a fantastic small band with a direct energy. It was like seeing it must have been like seeing Led Zeppelin in a club or The Who in a club when they were started. It was so powerful, and it was positive. And they were playing things like Substitute by The Who, but playing it not like The Who would be playing it live at Leeds, but when it dragged on for 25 minutes, but they would play it for 2 minutes like it was on a single. And it reminded you of the power of that really early burst and short bursts of music that could change your life. So I was very lucky to see them then.
Yeah. And so, I mean, great inspiration for a punk band. And then you said John Lennon's death kind of had an effect on you. And so maybe you wanted to do something a little less, a little less toiletsy and a little more, maybe inspiring or maybe contribute in a different way to the music world. Is that what it was?
That was it, Sean. Yeah, with 17, after the burst of the Toilets, when that burnt out, 17 became obsessed with getting a record deal, and we played for a couple of years, and we stopped writing songs. We kept just thinking, these are great, they'll get us a record deal, and we played them for 2 years and demoed them, and then when we got on the tour with the Stray Cats, we felt a little bit out of date. All of a sudden, we were playing with this band who were brand new, red hot. They were writing songs on the tour and playing them that night, and they had a real immediacy about them. We went to the studio with them when they recorded Runaway Boys and Rock This Town, and we saw them up close. And I just thought our band seems so stale by comparison. And we were all together with the Stray Cats when we found out that John Lennon had been taken from the world, and we actually played the first gig in Liverpool after the assassination. and we played at a place called Eric's on Matthew Street, which was opposite where the cavern was. So we literally arrived at the venue, and it was, the whole street was covered in flowers and Imagine symbols and peace symbols. And I just thought in that moment, it made me think that what we were doing was pretty worthless. And here was a man who'd had his life taken away from him, but was still had something to say, had said something all his life, and he never compromised. And I thought, here we are, we're compromising, trying to get a record deal. We've stopped being a band that makes great music, but we just trying to get, we're a vehicle to try and get a record deal. How hollow is that? So it was a bit of a eureka moment. And I just said to the band that we're not going to carry on like this anymore. We're going to reset, build on this new energy we've all experienced. I'm channeling it into some brand new music, and we're going to throw everything away and start again afresh. And it was a year zero moment for us. And that's what 1981 represented for us in the Alarm.
Wow. And so, you know, definitely a different sound. What do you remember kind of some of the maybe focal points that you wanted to focus on with the Alarm, as opposed to, you know, a more punk rock sound? Were there some things that you wanted to, obviously it sounded like you were positively inspired by, you know, by the death, and then seeing the arriving in Liverpool. I feel like that, you know, must have compounded the effect. But do you remember what you wanted to achieve with the Alarm?
Yeah, well, I think with what we saw with John Lennon, he was trying to change the world with music, with positive statements, not by, you know, spitting or putting two fingers up to the world. And,
sure.
and he didn't present a negative energy to the world. It was all about peace, make love, not war. You know, it was powerful. And all the things that he stood for were powerful, but we're rooted in goodwill to all men. And I think I realized that we were a band that was built around songs like Lennon, McCartney, if I can be so bold. But, you know, our heroes were songwriting partnerships. We loved The Clash, and it was Mick Jones and Joe Strummer. It wasn't one person. It was these duos. And the Alarm, we never wrote music out of jam sessions. It all started with a song, and that was our ethos. All our songs have to stand up on an acoustic guitar played on the street corner, and if they work in that environment, they'll work anywhere. And so what really started the Alarm was, I said to the band, look, there's something happening when we take these songs from the instrument they're written on an acoustic guitar, play them on electric guitars, we're losing something. So let's build the Alarm around this very instrument we have here. And Dave Sharp, our guitarist at the time, said, well, okay, well, let's make it louder for a start. And he put an electric guitar pickup into an acoustic. And all of a sudden we had a sound that was like nobody else's. And of course, we were still built on songs first. And so all our songs could stand up in that environment. And when we moved to London, we had this ethos of not making any demo tapes. We thought people were going to like us for who we are. And if we got a meeting with a record label or a manager or an agent, and we went round, they said, where's your demo tape? We said, we haven't got one. We've got these guitars. And we played the songs in their rooms, in their buildings, in their offices. And it created a buzz for us straight away. And next minute, we were, like I said earlier, we were playing with U2. And even when we were sound checking, Bono had been out Christmas shopping. It was December the 21st, I think, 1981. And it was the very last night of their October album tour. And they'd done their sound check because it was the second night of their show. They played the night before, so they were getting all their Christmas shopping ready to go home to Ireland and celebrate and get back to their families. And Bono walked in the venue, and I was setting my amps up on the stage, and I felt this tap on the shoulder and looked around. It was Bono himself, and he said, hello, what are you doing here?
Nice.
And I said, we're the Alarm, we're supporting you tonight. And he goes, what's that? You know, and it was a harmonica, and he said, I'm really interested in the acoustic guitar. And he invited me back to the hotel that night, and we played some songs on the acoustic guitar. And I showed him, he couldn't play guitar at the time, so I taught him his first guitar chords. So,
wow.
That's how our friendship started, and a friendship that lasts to this very day.
Wow, what a great story. Yeah, isn't it ironic that you're chasing a record deal, kind of tunnel vision on, you know, need a record deal, and then suddenly you change your kind of mantra, and you're like, let's make more positive music, and then suddenly, because of that, you start getting some real buzz.
Yeah, we did make a single, which we funded ourselves. We live in a seaside town called Rhyl, and there was summer jobs, so we worked behind bars and in cafes and all kinds of things to save up the money to be able to make our own single. And as I said earlier, we were big fans of the Clash, and we had the book of Penny Smith photographs before and after. And there was a whole series of photographs of the Clash in a recording studio. And we've worked out that it was a place called Pluto in Manchester. And so we thought, well, if it's good enough for the Clash, it surely could be good enough for us.
Yeah.
So we saved up the money, booked the session, and we recorded our first single there. And we went to London, and we just thought, well, if someone's at a gig and they buy a single from us, they're invested in our music. And they can take it home, and then when they play the record, I've got to go and see that band again. Demos at the time felt like everyone could do them. They were easy. They were an excuse. They weren't the real deal. So we thought, let's fly our flag straight away, make a single. Then when someone takes that 7-inch vinyl home and plays it on the record player, they become a real fan, and they'll turn up to the next gig. And that's what started happening.
Yeah. So then you guys start climbing the pop charts. You guys play Top of the Pops. I saw a video of you guys playing Top of the Pops, which for anyone outside the UK is kind of like, it was kind of like the TRL of the time, right?
It was. Yeah, I mean, at the time for us as well, we came to America in 1983 with U2 as their guest. We were completely unknown. Well, not completely unknown, but we had a small following in the UK. So it was very unusual for a band at that stage in their career to appear on stages in America. It was almost the reverse of how the Stray Cats left America and came to London and created a buzz. We almost did the same, but we went to America. But because we were on a big stage, a lot of journalists were checking U2 out, and radio people, and they were saying, "Who's that?" We had big hair, acoustic guitars, and we had a big noise. And so our very first ever television appearance was actually for the Cutting Edge show, which was on MTV. And from that, we appeared on American Bandstand before we'd even been on television in the UK. We were touring America, and then we found out we got onto Top of the Pops. We flew back to Britain, recorded the show, and came straight back to America to continue the tour. We didn't go home for 10 days. So we never saw the impact of the TV show. But when we arrived back into the UK, I can remember going to our hotel in London, because we were straight into playing shows. And I went down Kensington High Street, and all these girls jumped off a bus and were like, "Oh, the alarm," and all this kind of thing. And I said, "Oh, hello." And they said, "Hello, you don't sound American." And I said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I'm from North Wales. I'm from Rhyl." And it was only when I got home a few days later, my dad had bought a video recorder to tape his son on TV. And he played it back to me, and the presenter said, "Here they are. This band were on tour in America 2 days ago. Now they've flown here, and they're playing their new single, 68 Guns." And we went straight into the song. And from that, all the people watching the show thought we were an American band, until we had to explain for years later that we weren't American. But we were obsessed with going to America, so we were so lucky to go there anyway.
Yeah, that's a funny story, because it was such a huge show that was probably a lot of people's introduction to you. So you had to do some correction on the way.
But it was, we got lucky, because ironically, we were outside the top 40. It's a show that's focused on the UK top 40. But Public Image, Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols, or Johnny Lydon as he was now known, they pulled out of the show at the last minute, and that's how we got on the show. They had to come outside the top 40 to a band that was going up the chart, and that happened to be The Alarm. So Johnny Rotten did us more than one favor by singing Anarchy in the UK.
Yeah, that's funny. That sounds serendipitous. He inspires you to start a band, and then pulls out, so it opens the path for you to play such a huge show early on.
It was amazing. So yeah, it was. We never looked back from there onwards.
It's funny. I can only imagine what he would say if you told him that he's been an inspiration. I'm sure it'd be something very punk rock.
It would, yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw his. The Sex Pistols got inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame some years ago, and of course, Johnny Rotten didn't show up, and I think someone gave someone to read a note, and it was just basically like, piss off, and it's just like the perfect Sex Pistols response to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But
it's a shame, really, that that's what the perception of the Sex Pistols is. But prior to when I saw them in '76, like I say, they were an out and out rock band with an attitude and a vibe. And unfortunately, that all got distorted, didn't it? And it's a shame because they only made one album, but I wish they could have got to a second one. They had, when they got rid of Glenn Matlock, that was the end, really, because he was the tunesmith for the band. And I don't think they quite realized what they were letting go when they swapped him for Sid Vicious.
Yeah, a little style over substance there. But Sid definitely brought the style, though. So you guys, so after all those, you had kind of a succession of these great opportunities. Did you really see things just kind of really go explode after that?
We were quite level-headed about it because we had this experience of failure, if you like, before the alarm. So we were always kind of prepared for things to go wrong, and we were sort of. I think we learned quite quickly, really, that we never got to be on a major record label. We were always on a small independent, like IRS Records, and we knew that we couldn't really compete with the other bands around us who had these $1 million sort of record contracts, and so we were quite content to just get on with making our music and have a great touring platform and just being a real band, rather than something that was hyped.
Sure.
But there was a lot of challenges on the way, coming into the, exploding into the '80s, and dealing with the latter half when all of a sudden you knew things were going to change. You could smell the teen spirit coming around the corner, shall we say? When it came, it was all of a sudden it left a lot of bands like ourselves reeling, because all of a sudden we weren't the new bands anymore. There was other people taking attention away from us, and we had to learn how to respond in different ways.
Yeah. I feel like that switch from 80s rock or new wave or whatever, the current pop, climate was, late 80s, to grunge, I feel was one of the most drastic changes in commercial, music. And
I think it certainly was, especially in America, because America hadn't really experienced what happened in the UK around the punk explosion, because a lot of those bands like the Pistols went to America and sort of spat in the face of America almost, didn't they? And it was quite nihilistic and negative. And it was only really through a band coming underneath it all, like the Clash, really. And it was only really when they got to London Calling that people started to realize there's more to this than just shock horror, and there's something real, and there's real substance underneath it. So I think it was really when Nirvana came along, that was almost the Sex Pistols moment for America.
You're right.
And it really did, and I could see with our own audience that an audience that would look for independent and alternative music, it was all eyes on the UK, it was all eyes on the NME and things like that, and certain radio stations like K-Rock in LA or WBCN that played, or WLIR in New York, that played British music, British alternative music. And then all of a sudden America had its own voice. It had Eddie Vedder, it had Kurt Cobain, and America's never really looked back since then. All of a sudden you've had the Green Day and all those kind of great bands that have come along since.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective coming from someone outside of the U.S. because I'd never looked at it through that lens, but I could see how it would look like that, from someone who didn't grow up in America. That's true, because there were a lot of European bands who were really popular in the 80s, and the early 90s was so crowded with mostly American talent. You did have Oasis kind of broke through a little bit, in the early 90s. They kind of broke through. They were kind of doing their own thing. But
again with Oasis, I always thought they could have been a lot bigger in America if they'd played the game a little bit more, and they were quite antagonistic in their own way to journalists and radio people.
Right.
A lot of British bands, could be quite negative when they came over, and because I think we were quite lucky because we came to America before there was any hype around the band. So we did a lot of radio, as I say, and TV in America before we even did anything in the UK, and we were really grateful for that opportunity. And we were an unusual band that you see when we were talking about the levels of success and everything, we had an audience all around the world very early on, almost before we had success, and we've managed to retain that all our lives. So our success barometer needs to be measured on the across 40 years rather than in one decade. And because we used to have a saying in the band, when we'd see, because we were on a small label, we never, we got used to thinking, how come we can't have a full page advert in the music paper? How come our advert's only this big, and all that kind of thing. And I used to say, lads, that look, we're in a nice little car, we're in the middle lane, we're trucking along, and we'll see all these bands come on the outside lane, whoosh, they'll overtake us. And I said, just give them a couple of months, and we'll see them in a road crash accident on the other side.
Exactly. I was about to say, you'll see them broke down, a few miles ahead.
Thought, let's just stick with the steady eddies here and just keep rolling forward. And as long as we do quality, then we'll have a lifelong career of music rather than just a burnout like a lot of groups exist, And when the Nirvanas come along and the Pearl Jams and the spotlight turns away from a band like The Alarm, we were still prepared to be able to set up our own equipment or book our own rehearsals or make our own record in the studio. We weren't reliant on the record company cushion and safety net. Again, that transforms a lot of a lot of artists when that safety net is pulled away from them, that rug is happening, there isn't a secretary to book the rehearsal room or get you a taxi to the studio. They think, well, that's not making a record. They don't make one, as we've always cracked on and made the best of what we have and created our own opportunities and stayed as independent and in control as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's a great kind of nugget of wisdom because we have a lot of aspiring artists who listen to this show, and and if you truly love music and you just want to do it all your life, that's the way to go, rather than kind of the shooting star route where you pop up for maybe 2 years and then you never hear from them again.
Well, the success part of it becomes a real drug. And then if you're making music without the success and without the reviews and the journalist opportunities and the chance to go on the radio, then sometimes you think, well, then maybe the music's not so good, so I'll give up on that. Whereas I think it's really important to just always remember, when you're not in the spotlight, it doesn't really matter. That's something else. It's what we learned from John Lennon. Music is the core. If the music is good straight away, then it will survive. When we were 17, one of the worst things we ever did, we thought we were so good, we thought we'll kidnap a journalist from the New Musical Express. We'll make him come and see our band play a gig. And of course, he's going to love us and put us on the front page. And we literally did try to handle this guy out of the office into a lift and kidnap him and tie him up and put him in our van. I mean, I cringe, I shake with horror when I think of it now, because it all went horribly wrong. And there was a scuffle, and this guy ran off down the corridor, and there was a guy at the NME called Roy Carr, and he broke up this embarrassing situation, and it was horrible. And he sat us down and he said, look, Mike, this isn't the way to go about it. He said, if you put all this energy that you've shown today into writing your next best song, and he said, if you put that energy in the right place, you can't drag people to see your music. But if you make music that's good enough, it'll drag people from all over the world into your concerts. And it really true words that he spoke that day. And I took that home and thought, yeah, let's just focus on the music. The rest is all just noise. And sometimes it'll blow, the noise will focus on us, and sometimes it will move away. But let's just stay in this direction, keep moving forward.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the same principle of, you decided to kind of just forget about chasing a record deal, and the moment you just decided to focus more on the music part, you got you got the attention that you were seeking, and it's you hear that a lot from these inspirational coaches and all that. It's like, if you want to be rich, or if you want to be famous, or whatever it is, probably the way to do those things is to chase what you're pursuing. You know, don't chase the money or the fame, chase whatever it is your endeavor is, and that other stuff may come. You know, I'm not to say that fame comes with everything, but success, I think success is a better word for it.
Yeah, and I say it to a lot of young bands. I said, look, just carry on practicing. You know, put all the energy into your music. You know, if you're good enough, you'll make it.
Yeah.
You know, you really will. You don't need to do anything more than just be great at making music. And, you know, everyone can pop their videos on YouTube now or load them up on Spotify and iTunes and what have you. But only the cream really gets to the top. The best stuff still filters through. You know, I don't think there's many tragic bands, you know, that get left behind that making the best album of the century and no one's ever heard it. You know, even all the bands we love, like the Velvet Underground and Joy Division, who started small, their music still is recognized now, and because they just made great records.
Yeah, so true. So I did want to ask you a little bit about what you got coming up, and I know you got your wife with you as well, Jules Peters. For those who are listening on the podcast rather than on the video, how did you and Jules meet?
We met in 1986 in our local town. Our parents had businesses across the road from each other, and Jules had been at Bangor University studying English literature. And had come home from university, and I'd come off the big Alarm tour, and we literally bumped into each other in the high street where our parents had businesses, and then life took off from there, and we've been inseparable ever since, really. So yeah.
Did you guys grow up together? Was
inseparable?
And there she is. Did you guys know each other prior to bumping into each other, since you guys grew up or had businesses next to each other, or was it kind of you?
There's an 8 years 8-year difference. Yeah. So we joke that while Mike was figuring out how to rule the world with his band, I was still at primary school. You know, so it would have been a bit weird if we.
Okay, get it. So you guys didn't know each other prior. But Jules, were you aware of Mike's band and what he was doing when you met him? Were you like, oh, this guy just got off tour, this guy's cool, or was it just his personal charm?
It's a cute little story, really, because we're from a very kind of like a New Jersey town, and we all go out. The party people are out clubbing every weekend. So with Mike being older than me, I wasn't actually aware of the alarm. But however, my dad was aware of this white van that used to keep turning up opposite. My dad had real estate business. His mum and dad had an ladies outfitters business. So my dad over the years would see Mike loading up the van and admire, the hardworking nature of it, but not in a million years did he think I'd end up going out with him. So
he thought I was a roadie. You can't go out with a roadie.
It's quite a sweet story, because I just came back from university and I literally was coming, I can never remember, down the high street. We've got like one main street, and I was up one side of the road with my boyfriend at the time, boo, and Mike was with his girlfriend at the time, double boo, and I just spotted him, and he looked so different to the people that normally walked up and down the high street. But I was just, my heart went boom, and I was like, who is he? But hey, out of bounds was with someone else. But literally 3 or 4 days later, I collided with him in a doorway in our little high street, and again I was like, boom. But he came across as being a bit rude.
I was shy.
Yeah, a bit reserved. And I didn't think anything more about it. But the following week, I went to the local club with my mates, and Mike was in the club with his mates, and his mates knew me from high school. And Mike is so shy. He's not like your typical idea maybe of, although I always reckon lead singers are not like your typical womanizing musician. The lead singers are always doing all the hard work and being a lot more serious. So it was very hard to get Mike's attention. And in the end, his friends, who are my friends, just literally shoved him over to me. And he asked me out, and we got engaged 1 week later.
Wow, 1 week. Yeah. You really knew, huh?
The first time I took Jules out in the car for a little ride, I was playing some music in the car, and Jules turned to me and said, "It's bit of a pose, isn't it? Playing your own band on the cassette deck when you drive it. I said, that's not the Alarm, that's the Clash.
Oh.
I thought, this
True
is the,
story.
this is the one for me. I thought,
Oh.
I didn't really want to sort of be in that situation where I was, you know, meeting someone who see me across the stage and all that kind of stuff. You know, I was kind of wary of all that. So I was very lucky when I met Jules.
Did you
get on great?
Did you notice, Jules, when you bumped into her initially? Because when she thought you were a little rude, or were you just in a rush and didn't even really notice her?
I was just a bit too shy, I think, really. It's a,
right.
Blue dress story.
It's the blue dress story, yeah.
The funny thing is, I had to wear this uniform because I was working for my parents' estate agents in the summer, and I had to wear this. I always loved fashion, and they put me in this very conservative blue dress, which I despised with a passion, but I had to do what I was told. And so when Mike spotted me in the high street, I was wearing this dress that, quite frankly, I wouldn't have been seen dead in. But luckily, the blue dress worked, and here we are.
Luckily, you still got engaged a week after meeting each other. So, and
yeah,
we're
32 years later, we're still together.
Wow. When you know, right, Mike?
Yes, absolutely.
Bit of luck thrown in. I think we were just really incredibly lucky, you know. And looking back, my mother was horrified when I said, "Hey, I'm getting married," you know, and I'm getting. And only now that we've got two sons, our eldest is 16 and a half. And, you know, I would be a nightmare if he came back to me and told me he was getting married at 19. So I kind of understand where my mum's coming from all these years later. But yeah, we've been really fortunate. Mike is very, very exciting to be married to. And yeah, I think, you know, we've been through a lot of ups and downs, but we've always had rock and roll to lift our spirits, I guess. And, you know, we've just been doing some editing in the background before you called, and I just forget, you know, we never forget how fortunate we are to come to America, to tour. And no matter, you know, Mike got diagnosed with leukemia, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. I mean, we've been through
we have
tough times.
Faced a lot of challenges along the way, but we're still here.
Yeah, but we've always, the music has kept us strong. As we say in our big night in that we broadcast every week, yeah, it really does. When we're getting ready for the gig, we're laughing, we're looking at some of the videos at the moment of us and the band warming up to go on stage, and it's a real privilege. So that's sustained us, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we'd have worked out if we'd just been like a normal couple living in Prestatyn. Maybe we'd have been divorced by now.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but that's a great story. I did want to, you know, talking about the Alarm through the ages, I noticed you guys popped up on 13 Reasons Why, that incredibly popular Netflix show. So you guys got introduced to a whole new audience, because that show was huge with the younger crowd.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've had 3 songs in the series now, and the first one was "The Stand," our first single in America from 1983, and it was a real pivotal moment in the story when it gets played. And I think everyone must have had their phones went, Shazam, who's that? Next minute, we had about 2 or 3 million new followers on Spotify all listening to the music. And it was a great way to connect to a younger audience. And because we're such an active band and we were on tour, we were playing the Vans Warped Tour around the time it all hit. So with that, people think, who are they? You know, oh, they're on the Vans Warped Tour. They must be young.
Yeah, and they're on 13 Reasons Why. Yeah, and then they also, I think the Strength was also on there.
Strength and Walk Forever by My Side, which was as a cover version, actually. So yeah, that's a bit in there as well. So yeah, we've been really honoured by that TV series. To someone in there must like the Alarm.
Yeah, I was about to say, music director must be a fan. And just another example, like you said, as long as you keep doing your thing, you know, things like that are going to pop up all throughout your career.
Last summer, we went to see the Killers and in the Cardiff Castle in Wales. It was a massive show. It was the night before they played Glastonbury. And Brandon Flowers pops up on the stage and sings "Rain in the Summertime" by the Alarm. And that was another one of those moments where the whole I was at the gig and I didn't know. And I was just so, I was thinking, what's this? I recognize those lyrics. I think, hang on, it's me, it's mine. And because he didn't introduce the song, the whole audience had this same effect. And you know, the Alarm are a big band in Wales anyway. So all of a sudden the audience, he's singing the Alarm song, you know, and boom, off it. And then it became this massive viral moment that got shared all around the internet, and all the Killers fans, what's that song that he's been singing? You know, so it's great.
Did they get put on to the fact you were in the audience, or no, or you were just?
Yeah, we went backstage to meet them. They'd actually made contact about prior to the show, about me going up on stage with them and singing a couple of songs. And then on the day, because they were getting ready for Glastonbury the next day, their manager said, look, it's all running so late, and we've got to sync some video footage, and we've got to do this with the Pet Shop Boys, and we're really sorry, but can we park the idea of you coming on stage and look at that in the future another time?
Sure.
I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm honored to be asked anyway. Great.
Sure.
So come to the show and everything. And so we went to the show, and then they did the song, surprised us by playing the song.
Nice. That was a nice little nod.
Yeah, and then the manager came and found me in the audience, invited us backstage, and we hung out with them afterwards.
There's actually some great footage that went viral, so you know, if you needed that.
Yeah, I want to check that out.
It's up on YouTube, and you can see me and our drummer and Jules in the crowd being like, "What?" You know, totally getting surprised. It's pretty good, and because of that, I think it was a great little YouTube sort of moment. Totally. But yeah, they were great, and they were big Alarm fans. You know, they really were. All over us, you know. It's like, wow, I want to talk to you about, you know, Hot First, never mind Declaration.
That's incredible. So tell us a little bit about, you have a special coming up. It's called The Alarm's Christmas Gathering, and it's going to be on December 19th. It's going to be, you know, a virtual event, of course, because of the state we're in, and you're doing it with Moment House, which is, you know, the streaming service, Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine's streaming service. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, we're really excited because the Alarm have always had a bit of a tradition of doing a Christmas concert, and we've been running Alarm gatherings for almost 30 years, and all the fans travel to Wales to experience the Alarm's music in its home country every year, and it's become a huge event. And because we can't do it, obviously, because of COVID, we just decided to partner up with Moment House and go live from the Big Night In studios, as we call them now. And, you know, because we've been broadcasting all throughout the lockdown from our home, and we've made it, the studio is turned into a sound stage now. And then I have our living room is a jukebox stage, and it's been a massive undertaking and a big learning curve to learn how to create really powerful television in our own right, and that represents the Alarm in the way we've always hoped. So it's going to be a fantastic show. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it really is going to be something else. And we've got some great content, and we've got the Alarm playing, and I'm going to do some acoustic songs, and it's going to be a good few hours of serious rock and roll.
So where can listeners find that? Where do they go to listen to it?
Yeah,
or to watch it?
Yeah, you go to momenthouse.com/The Alarm.
All right, so that'll be on December 19th for some holiday cheer with The Alarm.
Yeah,
hey,
and
Mike,
what we're doing, Sean, is we're encouraging all the fans to, if they can, have their own little house party, because it's that kind of show. It's going to be quite interactive in its own way. And we're asking all the fans to turn up the TV loud, wake up the neighbours, you know, invite them in, and turn make their own gathering in their own environment. So it can be a really it's almost like they're hiring The Alarm for $20, and we're going to play in their living room. So it's kind of like that's the vibe.
That's an epic. That's an epic proposal.
So not that deal.
Yeah. Mike, Jules, it's been such a pleasure talking with you guys. You know,
Thanks, Sean.
Mike, I talk to a lot of artists, and you know, you seem like such a positive, humble, happy person. Maybe it's because you got such a lovely wife in Jules with you there, and a nice career there.
And a very nice publicist.
and I feel like you've given you've dropped some great nuggets of wisdom already, but we like to end the interview by asking if you had one piece of advice for aspiring artists, what would it be?
Well, my advice to all artists is to never give up, never stop believing, and put all your energy into making great music. And you never know when you're going to write your best song. And I'm still searching for it to this very day. But you just got to keep moving forward. And life is never over. So a lot of artists can be written off at an early stage, but it doesn't mean that's just someone else's opinion. If you keep believing in yourself, putting out your music, and be prepared to go wherever that music takes you. If that's just to rehearsal rooms and your own living room and writing your own songs for your own friends and family, fantastic, enjoy that. But sometimes it might take you all the way and you find yourself playing in Giant Stadium in New York or somewhere and alongside the greats. So you just never know. What music is always going to surprise you whenever you make some music, and just keep doing it. Bring it back.